Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into the mindset of Robert Kiyosaki, the rich dad, poor dad author.
Yeah, we've gone through a recent hour-long interview he did. I think it was on the Finance with Sharon YouTube channel.
That's the one. And we've tried to pull out the core ideas, the really crucial stuff about how he sees wealth, school, the global economy, personal growth, too.
It's quite a mix. And our goal really is to unpack these views. They're often pretty controversial, aren't they?
Definitely contrarian. So we want to highlight the key knowledge he's trying to share and maybe, give you a different perspective on things.
Well, what strikes me right away is how his childhood really shaped everything for him. His views on money, on school.
He talks about growing up in Hawaii, right? And noticing the wealth gap between different groups.
Exactly. Seeing that some people were rich, others weren't, and it made him ask why. It was a fundamental question for him right from the start.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. The famous poor dad versus rich dad. His actual dad, the poor dad, was highly educated, a professor.
But then there was his friend's dad, the entrepreneur, the rich dad.
And a pivotal moment seems to be when his own father, the professor, actually admitted he didn't know much about money.
Yeah, imagine hearing that. It basically pushed Kiyosaki towards his rich dad for advice.
And that advice was completely different. Like, entrepreneurs have to understand money, but employees, they just need a job.
That really set the stage, didn't it? For him rejecting that whole go to school, get a job mantra later on.
So how did the rich dad teach him? It wasn't exactly conventional, was it?
Not at all. He mentions working for free at the rich dad's hotel, odd jobs, things like that.
For free? Why?
The rich dad's logic was, if I pay you, you'll think like an employee. He wanted him to learn business from the ground up, not just earn a wage.
Interesting. And wasn't there something about monopoly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. His poor dad thought it was just a game, maybe a waste of time.
But the rich dad
Used it as a teaching tool, a serious one. Showed him how wealth building, in his view, wasn't about saving up for the little greenhouses.
it was about the red hotels.
Exactly. Trading up, using debt strategically to get those bigger income-producing assets, which is, the total opposite of what most schools teach about debt.
Avoid it like the plague, usually.
Right. And this skepticism, it didn't just stop at school teachers. He developed a real distrust of academic experts in finance, too.
He mentions people like Ben Bernanke, right? Former Fed chair, PhD from Princeton.
Yeah, but Kiyosaki points to the 2008 crisis and the bailouts and basically implies, look, these highly educated people, they don't always get it right in the real world. He kind of sees them as core people with a degree.
Wow, okay. So that's the foundation. Now let's zoom out. He talks about the world order shifting.
He does. He sees a big split happening. The West, maybe 1.2 billion people using the dollar, versus the East, Russia, China, controlling maybe 3.8 billion people. He points to the BRICS meetings as evidence.
And where does he see India in all this?
Kind of in the middle, a pivotal player in this changing dynamic.
And this ties back to his views on economics and politics.
Absolutely. He controversially calls many school systems Marxist because they emphasize taxation.
Whereas he's a capitalist who aims to legally pay no taxes by using debt.
Right. And this shapes his political views, too. He mentions his friendship with Donald Trump, sees him as a fellow capitalist.
And his views on others. We should probably mention, these are his stated views we're reporting.
Of course. He's critical of Obama, calling him a Marxist, and is very critical of Biden. He calls him the most stupid president ever and blames him for damaging the U.S. economy, specifically citing the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline.
He connects that pipeline decision directly to rising oil prices hitting the middle class.
Yeah, he sees that as a major policy error.
And this all feeds into his concerns about the U.S. dollar.
Definitely. He thinks if Russia and China really move away from the dollar, especially if China tries to back the yuan with gold, the dollar's in serious trouble.
He uses strong language, like collapses or becomes trash.
He does. He anticipates hyperinflation because of all the money printing he sees happening.
So what's his advice in that kind of scenario?
Forget the dollar, forget the yuan, focus on real commodities, silver, gold. He says he owns gold and silver mines himself.
So he's positioned to benefit if his prediction comes true.
That seems to be the strategy. He even says America is sliding into depression right now because of this clash between the U.S. and the Russia-China bloc.
That's a pretty grim outlook. Shifting back to the individual level, what does he see as the most important asset?
It's not what you might think. It's not property or stocks. He emphasizes this, meaning your mind, your financial intelligence.
So education is key, but not necessarily formal education.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's quite dismissive of learning about money from, as he puts it, stupid college professors who don't have practical experience like his poor dad.
Where should people learn then, according to him?
He suggests things like podcasts, listening to smart, experienced people. He mentions Jim Rogers as one of the world's smartest investors. Learn from those doing it.
He also makes some observations about different nationalities in finance, doesn't he?
He does. He notes the high number of Indian CEOs globally, suggesting maybe an inherent aptitude there. But then he makes more controversial claims, like suggesting the Japanese save too much, leading to national debt problems, which he views as financially unwise.
Okay, that definitely sounds controversial. And this connects to his views on India specifically, the traditional focus there.
Yeah, he challenges that strong cultural push in India towards becoming doctors or engineers seen as safe careers.
Why challenge that? They're often well-paid professions.
True, but he points out this paradox. You see high earners, even lottery winners in India, who still end up broke. Why? Because they lack financial management education.
So schools teach you how to make money, maybe, but not how to keep or grow it.
Precisely. And if that knowledge isn't passed down, wealth disappears across generations. He even wrote a book, Who Stole My Pension?, talking about how pension systems, similar in the U.S. and India, can be vulnerable.
Wall Street potentially stealing pensions, as he puts it.
Right? It boils down to that mindset difference again, the employee mindset. Save, get out of debt, buy your home, invest conventionally in the stock market. That's the poor dad way.
Versus the entrepreneur or investor mindset.
Which is his way. Use debt strategically. Buy assets that generate income, gold mines, rental properties, businesses.
Let's talk about societal trends. He mentions seeing Indian talent returning to India.
Yeah, he observes that shift. People seeing more opportunity back home, which kind of reverses that old American dream narrative of needing to go west.
But he also has some stark observations about America itself, about poverty.
Very much so. He talks about being shocked by the increase in slums or homeless encampments in major U.S. cities like Portland, San Francisco, even Washington and New York. He contrasts it with an earlier time when that wasn't so visible.
Does he give examples?
He mentions a personal real estate investment he had in Portland that got hurt by city policies, allowing these encampments nearby.
He also tells a story about Mumbai, though, doesn't he? About slum redevelopment.
Yeah, a contrasting anecdote where he suggests some people might exploit the system, get free housing, but rent it out and stay in the slum. He also notes similar issues with failed property developments in China. It's complex.
Okay, let's switch gears. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. What's his take?
He owns it.
Yeah.
Says he has 60 Bitcoin.
Did he get in early? What was his strategy?
He says he watched it since 2009, waited for a crash, bought in around $6,000 after it had hit $20,000.
Yeah.
And crucially, he says he doesn't sell. He holds.
So a buy and hold approach after a dip, does he think anyone can just jump in?
He stresses you need to understand both fundamental investing and technical trading. It's not just guesswork.
Any concerns about it?
Yeah, government regulation's a big one for him. And central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, he worries those could undermine Bitcoin's value proposition.
How does he categorize these different forms of money?
It's quite memorable. He calls gold God's money. Bitcoin is people's money. And fiat currencies, dollars, rupees, whatever, are fake money.
Toilet paper, I think was the term he used.
Yes. Especially since the U.S. left the gold standard in '71. He argues that government printing just leads to inflation, making life harder for regular people.
Okay, let's talk taxes. Another hot topic for him.
Definitely. He links the idea of taxation to what he calls Marxists. His capitalist approach, he claims, involves legally paying zero taxes.
Wow.
Through debt. Strategic borrowing for business purposes. He points out the tax system favors large-scale business borrowing over, say, personal credit card debt.
He also connects us to demographics, right? The baby boomers.
Yes, he argues their massive investment in pensions, inflated stocks, housing, bonds, creating bubbles he now thinks are bursting because those pensions are, in his words, empty.
And he wonders why schools don't teach these economic cycles.
Right. It's a recurring theme for him.
He does acknowledge different ways to run a country, though, like focusing on happiness versus a winner-takes-all approach.
He touches on that debate, yeah. And the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, and a rising inequality where the top 1% controls so much wealth. But his take is kind of, well, it's always been that way. In America, he says it's more like 10% own 90%.
Okay, let's talk housing. Renting versus buying. This is huge, especially in cultures like India.
Absolutely. He directly challenges that ingrained belief that buying a house is the ultimate dream or even needed for marriage.
He sees it as pressure, especially on young people.
Yeah, pressure to take on huge long-term debt early on, which can stifle risk-taking and entrepreneurship.
And he speaks from experience here.
Big time.
Yeah.
He mentions owning something like 15,000 rental houses. Again, emphasizing using debt to buy them and legally paying no tax on the income.
So the key isn't the house itself, but your financial smarts.
That's his core point. Is it an asset or liability? An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out.
And the house you live in.
Is usually a liability by that definition. He knows people struggle with this, spending their lives paying off one mortgage.
It's easier to dream of winning the lottery, maybe.
Which he points out often ends badly anyway, because people don't know how to manage the money, even if they get it.
Okay, beyond money, what about just living a happy life? What are his pillars?
He lists 3: money, health, and relationships.
And if he had to rank them?
Controversially, he puts money first. His argument basically is that financial security makes dealing with health and relationship issues much easier. He says no money, no honey, no life, no health, no happiness.
Pretty blunt. Does he feel his own wealth contributes to his happiness?
He suggests it does, mentioning the freedom of having a private jet as an example.
But he adds an ethical dimension, right?
Crucially, yes. He insists on never doing anything illegal, unethical, or immoral to make money. That's a fundamental rule for him.
Got it. Let's move to his ESBI model. Can you break that down quickly?
Sure. It's the cash flow quadrant. E is employee, high taxes. S is self-employed or a small business, often also high tax. B is big business owner, like 500 plus employees. Lower taxes, system driven. And IOV is investing from the inside, deals, leveraging money. That's where he and people like Elon Musk operate in BNI.
And the difference is mainly mindset.
He believes so. He pushes his cash flow quadrant book and the board game as ways to learn that BNI thinking. Insider investing for him means putting deals together, finding financing, building teams.
So if a 20-year-old is starting with nothing, what's his advice?
It boils down to, you got to study, man. Constant learning every single day.
Study what? Not necessarily formal school.
No, study money. Financial statements, he calls that your real report card, not school grades. Don't work for money, learn how money works.
He gives an example from 2018.
Yeah, borrowing $300 million when the market crashed to buy cheap real estate, seeing opportunity in crisis.
He also talks about your friends, doesn't he? Quite directly.
Very directly. Who the F are your friends, man? You hang out with poor people. His point is, surround yourself with people who are where you want to be. If you want to be a billionaire, hang out with billionaires.
How do you even do that if you're starting out?
Focus on your own growth, your own knowledge. Understand the game you want to play. His is capitalism. Become interesting to those people. He sees entrepreneurship itself as a game with tons of opportunity, especially now with technology.
So the recipe seems to be financial intelligence, the right network, strong mindset, clear vision, and willingness to fail.
Absolutely. Failure is part of learning. He also stresses key skills. Selling is number 1. Then maybe learning how to buy real estate for nothing down and having top lawyers and accountants.
It brings it back to the global situation, too, India's position.
Yeah, sees India in a pivotal spot amid this global power struggle. And his core message remains, educate yourself financially because schools won't. If you're not getting rich today with all the tech available, he kind of implies it's on you. You need to engage your brain and define what you want.
He chose freedom over a traditional path.
Right. MBA, jobs, house, that wasn't for him. It's about deciding what you want. Want a gold mine. Study how to get one. Different mindsets like soccer players versus rugby players, different games.
And he thinks India is well-positioned now.
Best place right now, is what he said.
Let's touch on his political views again briefly. Trump versus Biden.
He views Trump's presidency positively, focusing on actions like the Keystone Pipeline approval. He contrasts that sharply with Biden's stopping it, blaming that for higher energy costs hurting Americans. Again, these are his stated opinions.
Has he done business in India himself?
No, he says he found it too hard. His focus there is teaching because he feels people are hungry to learn.
And he keeps coming back to the problems with schools and rising poverty in the U.S.
Yes, and the warning about bankrupt pensions and an impending biggest crash ever due to printing fake money.
Does he invest conventionally at all? Stocks?
He says he owns nothing in the stock market, personally, except shares in his own companies. He expresses a deep distrust of Wall Street and bankers.
So, for someone wanting to be a big business owner, like a Tata,
Start learning, start doing, and network. He mentions associating with people like Jim Rogers again. Surround yourself with the best.
what does he see as the next big thing for him personally?
He's focusing on education now. Starting a new business in that sector, though he didn't give details, it aligns with his lifelong focus on wealth disparity.
And his current assets reflect his philosophy.
Seems so. Silver and gold mines, Bitcoin, real estate, businesses. Choose friends wisely, study constantly, understand money. That's the mantra.
He ends on a pretty serious note about global conflict, though.
Yeah, a grim outlook. He thinks the world is coming apart and predicts war as money systems fail. He draws on his own experience as a Marine pilot in Vietnam.
His preparation.
Gold, silver, businesses. Avoid the dollar. He also thinks China is in financial trouble and might start a war, maybe over Taiwan, though he notes chip manufacturing is shifting.
It's a historical pattern, he suggests. Governments print money, then create distractions like war.
That's his reading of history. He even mentions his military background and medals again near the end.
But he does have a final positive word for India.
Yes, calls it a great country. Rich, smart, peaceful, yet strong, with huge potential if it embraces capitalism more fully.
So wrapping it all up, Kiyosaki really pushes you to question everything: school, debt, assets, the dollar, the news.
Definitely. Financial literacy learned outside the system, understanding global shifts, using debt smartly, thinking like an owner, not an employee. Those are the core themes.
It certainly leaves you with a lot to think about. His challenges to conventional wisdom are stark. What parts of your own financial thinking, your view of the world, might need a second look after hearing all this? And maybe most importantly, what's the game you actually want to play?
Good questions to ponder. We hope this deep dive gave you some valuable insights into his perspective.
Thanks for joining us.